record on this computer. Very nice. Yeah, so we're in. Ooh, everybody, just breathe in that Maya smell, that fresh Maya smell. Ooh, first opening of the semester. First of the semester, so delicious. Oh, look at her, all gray and kind of 90-degreed up. Big sniff. It's just so gorgeous. Really just a beautiful tool right here. Very nice. So this is Maya. Everybody knows Maya. Everyone say hi to Maya. Hi, Maya. How are you doing? It's been, for some of us, it's been a while, right? So I just wanted to go over some basics, some basics. Like, for instance, you got the create menu up here. We're going to only be looking at Polygon primitives, but keep in mind for later when we're setting up shots for like a lip sync, you got cameras in here as well as lights. So a lot of tools at our disposal there. We're not going to be going so much into man, you guys are so polite. Thank you for saying hi to them, to Maya. But yeah, also keep in mind that your menu sets are going to change depending on like what you're doing. So if you're doing rigging, you're going to have a lot of skeleton and skin weight stuff in there. Animation, you're gonna have like keying and stuff. To be honest, like it sounds like blasphemous, but even as an animator, I never really open up the animation menu. It's a little bit strange. But yeah, and then modeling, that's going to be all of your like subdividing tools and stuff in there. Again, now I'm kind of going over this because there's elements that we're going to be focusing on more in this class, you know, right? Let's shrink this down so it's just me. And yeah, so one of those is the channel box right here on the right hand side. Keep that in mind. Channel box, basically, if I create a polygon primitive cube, if I select any object in Maya, it's going to show the transform values up here. So again, as I move this around, boom, all those values can change with it. As I rotate it, boom, get rotation in there. As I scale it, you guessed it, we got some scale in here as well. So the reason that I'm going over that again is because that's very important. All of these translation value, or all these transform values, sorry, misspoke there, are the channels that we're going to be animating, right? So as we're animating, we're going to be manipulating these channels piece by piece, you know? So we're going to be just adjusting those values all the time. So I want you guys to remember that this is where you can see them. This is also where you can see like what you have selected, because we're going to be making sure that we're not keying anything that we shouldn't be, right? We're going to be keying only controls, only Nurbs curves, essentially, when we get rigs into our scene. But yeah, and then down here you have some display layers. So when we download rigs, or if you're setting up an environment or something, you might want to have some things display on a display layer and then some things not. Essentially, once you compose a scene, you'll have your background be pushed onto this layer, you know, onto a layer somewhere in here and set to reference mode. That way we can't click it when we're like trying to manipulate our character. It's just a way better way of working than like accidentally selecting the environment all the time, you know, so be aware of that. Again, the hotkeys are W, E, and R for translate, rotate, and scale. Yeah, so that's some pretty basic stuff as well. And let me talk about the Windows menu up here. So if we go to Windows, we want to make sure that we always have an outliner open. See this bad boy right here? Always keep an outliner open, just because it really helps for scene organization. Like if I duplicate this cube and then move it, and then like I duplicate that a bit more, and then I'm just like, okay, I'm getting wild here. Get ready for it. Get ready for it. Boom. Now I have a bunch of cubes. Like it just helps to like, so you can see every single one of these, you know, like it's just a way better way of working sometimes, depending on the situation, especially when you're dealing with rigs, so you can tell like what you have, you know. So that's the outliner. Another key critical window that we're going to be opening up is animation editors, graph editor. Boom. So I want everyone, now I know this thing is it's a little bit big. It's a little bit of a chonker, a little bit chonky right here, you know, but it is a fantastic tool because it's literally kind of the only way that you can debug your animation. And by debugging, I mean like if you're trying to figure out why, let's just get like a weird scenario in here, right? And then let me go in and start messing with tangents. Boom. But yeah, like if something is really weird is going on, like you set 2 keys and then it's just going in the opposite direction and then going up and stuff, you may, what's happening? And you'll have to turn to this graph editor. And one, you're gonna need to understand the graph editor, right? So it's like a bunch of values like this. And don't worry, I'm gonna be going more into this in the actual lecture when I'm talking about approaching animation. But like it's going to have all these values on every channel in here, and it's going to have a curve for all those, and you have to understand what they mean, right? Because if you don't, you're going to be floundering around. And honestly, I'll explain this graph editor, don't you worry. But it's it's almost like a bit of a personal journey to understand it, because I've noticed that students don't really get it until they work with it hands-on, and they kind of go through the trials and tribulations of being like, oh, that's what this value means. Like, that's why I'm getting this result. That's really weird, you know? So please keep it open when you're animating. You can close it when you're doing like modeling and stuff, but like if you're animating, please keep it open, because it's going to be, it'll save your work more than once, you know? Like it'll be the only way that you can get really good results. So keep it open, try to understand it. It'll be overwhelming because eventually you'll have like, let's see, let's just move this around. You'll have like a bunch of values on here, and then let's select it. Like you can have all these curves for like every single body part on the character. So when you like drag select over the character, there'll just be a mess of those. So just make sure that you're only like, if you're trying to figure out something, select only like one object and like try to diagnose that only. But yeah, so graph editor, very important. We're going to keep it open for today because we're going to be doing animation. And then finally at the bottom, let's do some setup. Let's do some first time setup, right? So this is probably a new version of Maya, unless you had me last semester, then you probably are on 2022. So that's dope. But if you're not, down here we have the time slider, right? We have the time slider. So you can left click and drag here and, you know, just scrub time. So let me set a key. Remember, setting keys is S. Don't worry, I'll repeat that over and over again. But like down here, you can scrub time. And now that box is schmoving, right? That box is schmoving all over the place. So if you want to change your time range, you have your in and out times right here. So this current crop, like this current timeline, ends at frame 120, starts at 1, right here, boom. To increase the scene length, you can drag that out timer right here on this little gray box. You can also just drag the entire box itself. But yes, you can drag that in and out. And you can also type in values that are past this. So if you're like, man, I'm hitting frame 200 and I have nowhere to go. My scene, it's too big. It's too big. You can just go in here simply and type in like 1,000. Boom. Now you got 1,000 frames to work with. Fantastic. Very cool. All right, so that's all awesome. And then let's right click our timeline right here. So everybody right click your timeline, because we got to do a little bit of setup in here. What we want to do is go to playback speed right here and make sure it's set to real time. Because if you have it set to play every frame free, boom, like it sometimes is set to, like it's going to be going as fast as your computer can process those frames. So if it's a real simple scene, and let's just shrink the timeline here, it'll be, look at that, that is not right now. Let's see if I move this to 24 right here in 24 frames, this should be 1 second, right? This 24 frame range. So it should take a whole second for that box to move over there. But you know, this box has other ideas for us. It is not concerned with our feeble grasp on what a second is, because it's going at play every frame free. Instead, let's do real time. Boom. So now it's going to go by our frame rate. It's going to be it's going to accommodate our frame rate right there. And even we can check what our frame rate is by going to Windows and kind of checking under the hood of Maya, go into settings and preferences. So Windows, settings and preferences. And let's go to down here, time slider. And just make sure your frame rate is 24 FPS right here. Make sure your playback speed is 24 FPS as well. And also look at this little tick mark that I have that's indicating the key right here. Sometimes we can thicken those up. Like the default is 1x key size right there. Look how tiny that is. Like I don't even think you guys can see that over Zoom. So I just make mine 5x right here. So those are basically the only options that I really change around here. So make sure you're on 24 FPS, then 5 times, and then playback speed 24 FPS times 1. We don't want to do times 2 or anything. It's ridiculous. So save that, close that, and we'll be good. So yeah, so that's pretty much set up for us in terms of like animation preferences. There's one more for the timeline and then one optional one. So I've noticed this is a new feature in here. If you right click your timeline, go to cached playback and check this box off. Like make sure it's checked off, because I've noticed that basically what it's doing is that it kind of writes some of that positional data of the animation to the timeline. And so that way it doesn't have to process your character in real time, and you'll see that it'll kind of buffer. The problem is that while we're animating, that's really annoying because it'll slow us down, because it's going to trying to write more of that data into the timeline. And we're like, dude, nah, I just wanted to move this arm up a little bit. We don't need to worry about that, right? So I always keep it off because it kind of just slows me down there.
Hey, Mike, quick question.
Yeah, absolutely. What's up?
So in the cache playback, I accidentally hit the viewport software cache, and now I can't click the first one.
Oh, weird. I don't even have those options. Let's see. Okay, let's see. I've never done this before, so let's see. Let's do evaluation cache. Try doing flush cache as well, and then try doing just clicking off cache playback. Let's see if that's possible.
Okay, yeah, I was able to fix it.
Nice. Yeah. Very good. But yeah, so that's it for preferences. I update I like change my hotkeys specifically for animation, by the way. So if you want to end up wanting to do that, like if you're like these default key bindings are pretty slow when we get into them, then feel free to update those. But besides that, like I'm working with default everything else, in terms of animation. The one thing that is optional is this little auto keyframe toggle, right? So when we're first learning, we're kind of being like, okay, so I select my object that I'm going to animate and I press S, boom, there you go. And then I bring it to the next pose and I press S, and then I move it again. And then notice how if I turn this off and I move it, boom, there's no key on the timeline. So I have to manually press S. Otherwise, if I start scrubbing my timeline without pressing S, watch how it happens. See how it just snaps back there and there's like it's like it just didn't record that pose at all. So we want to make sure that we don't lose a lot of time. So I recommend learning auto keyframe from the start. That way you can get around the confusing nature of it. Just be aware that if you scrub your timeline to like frame 38 and you're like, okay, let's move this pose now, it's going to automatically record that, right? So now you'll have some like, you could create some janky bonus movement that you didn't want previously. So just be aware of that. But yeah, I animate with this all the time because I don't like pressing S after I move every single like wrist and finger joint. Like it gets tedious, right? Okay. So let's talk about more Maya resources. So on here, let's not talk about principles yet. That'll be soon to come. Boom, boom, boom. On the course content on Beachboard, we have just like a breakdown of like a bunch of stuff. Like we have just different parts of the pipeline, but we also have. That's it. In here? No. Sorry, I have a bunch of like hidden files that we don't need. Oh, this should be hidden as well. We don't need any of this. Let's see, where is it? Oh, yeah, here we go. There we go. I have a guide to animating in Maya. It essentially breaks down all of this sort of stuff. And it goes further beyond, and it talks about like using rigs and stuff, which we're going to break into starting next week. So that would be really cool. It has some some red disclaimer information, like don't do these, otherwise you're going to mess up everything in your scene. And let's go to let's just keep looking at this. We got a bunch of like setting up the actual scenes, like creating like the layout and hiding stuff if you don't need them. That'll be annoying to mess around with. Yeah, so lots of information in here. Lots and lots of information. There's a section called IK versus FK. We're going to get to that tonight, actually. Talking about that because it is forever a concept that students don't grasp. So I included it in the first homework so we could tackle that one real quick. Oh, I should also I have another handout that I'm going to upload to this. That's just all like the Maya hotkeys and stuff. There's like some up top, but like there's like a more in-depth version. It's a little bit more basic though. It's just like a text document that I prepared. So let me write down and make sure that I upload that. Nice. All right. But yeah, and then you'll see that in the animation section, I have some rigs included, but I also have like links to some of my tutorials on YouTube, links to a bunch of just rigs that you can download in the rigs folder down here. So here's some more rigs for you. And then when the time comes, you can follow this link to oh, Nelson, let me also include animationmethods.com. This is like a more comprehensive list I've noticed. And essentially they have so many rigs that we can animate with. I really recommend using this website because there's so many options, you know. So yeah, that is another resource for that I'll refer to again when the time comes. For now, I'm just going to link to that in the Discord, in the free resources channel. But yeah, so there you go. There's that. Dead-faced Nemo. Did you see him again, Diego? Where is he? Where is he? Oh yeah, dude, this Nemo creeps me the fuck out. I'm not gonna lie. And I like how when you put your mouse over it, like slowly zooms in on that creepy face. So yeah, but yeah, lots of amazing stuff in here. Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun once we start getting to the actual animation portion of characters next week. But yeah, so there's that. And let me think, is there any other resources that I'm missing out on? Like I did copy a lot of the stuff over from Computer Animation 1. So if you wanted to refresh on some of that, I did like hide some things that like we didn't need in there. But yeah, so awesome stuff. Lots of cool stuff in there. So everything's set up for animating. So let's get into animation, right? Whenever I talk about animation, I get all heated up, so I'm gonna take off my my hoodie. it's not as necessary because during this section, this is why I want to teach in person because, you know, like animation is a mobile art form, right? Not just not meaning like mobile on phones, but like when I'm animating, I'm just moving around all the time. I'm like trying to get a feel. Like if I'm doing like a punch, you'll see me in my chair, like doing some arcs, trying to figure out something that like feels like, you know, fits the scene, you know, feels right. I'm doing like sadness, then I'm getting in that headspace too. I'm like slowing down my movements, you know, like, so it's all about getting into the character. It's all about getting into the action. And so it's a really physical sort of art form, right? And I thought we'd just go over the basics of animation again. I know we're in computer animation too, but you know, if we were truly masters of these principles, then we wouldn't need this class, right? We'd all be badasses already. So it's always good to go over them again. So starting with this one, boom, a very key one. I know it's a little bit small, you know, but squash and stretch. I wonder if can I zoom in on here? Nice. Squash and stretch, right? Very simple, very basic. I actually kind of disagree with some of these, this initial one, because if you watch when it stretches out, it doesn't maintain the volume of it. Like when it stretches, it should also get skinnier, you know, as it's getting stretched. But yeah, it's just a little gripe with the infographic. Of course, an animation nerd like myself is gonna freak out about that. But yeah, so the squash and stretch, basically it's showing the mass moving, right? So it's used for speed, it's used to show the material as well. So like if you drop a bowling ball, not gonna be much squash and stretch in that. Like it's gonna really destroy the illusion if that bowling ball starts, you know, bending and spreading out and stuff. And this is for this is for kind of more cartoony animation. However, hopefully you guys can see me. I wonder what I look like on cam. Let's see. Yeah. But like in real life, right? It's like this concept also applies. So I can also move it up a little bit. And this is also why I want to teach in person for this class, because it is such a physical thing. But like the way that we approach squash and stretch in real life, if I'm animating like me, like a character like me, like a humanoid, like if I'm doing a jump, I'm not just gonna stay like that, right? Like that doesn't show a lot of force because it's just like my silhouette's all just straight up and down. To approach squash and stretch in that form, boom, I'll like spread out my legs, right? I'll spread out my arms, you know, get some cool posing in there that's gonna kind of communicate that sort of squash down, right? And then when you jump, then you can go kind of more streamlined and straight up and down. So that's how we kind of squeeze squash and stretch into a more realistic rig, you know? It's more into the posing rather than just actually squishing out the verts of the model. Yeah, I'll leave that over there just in case, because I'm probably going to be moving around for a lot of these. All right. Oh, ooh. Anticipation, right? So anticipation, I know y'all know about it, but it's like you guys know about it conceptually, right? Like you guys have been through like at least animation 1 and 2 and probably 3 at this point. But the principle of animation, you know, it's the idea that if you're going to be going to screen left over here, boom, first you're gonna go screen right a little bit, right? So instead of just going straight there, boom, like that, you're gonna kind of bob back the other way and then see that? Just a little bit of anticipation there, right? And the reason that that's happening, so I like to break this down in terms of like physics, right? Just for my body right here. So like the reason that anticipation is happening is because my center of gravity is right here, right? but I have to lift up this leg in order to travel that way, right? So in order to not fall over immediately, my body has to kind of move to the left a little bit, just move a little bit this way. Sorry, move screen right a little bit to get that center of balance over this foot that's planted down, and then I can freely step. So that's why anticipation exists. That's why it happens, right? It's because often you need to counterbalance some stuff, right, in order to make that movement happen. Now you can exaggerate it. Whoa, do a lot of anticipation, or you can do anticipation in different ways, right? Because I can physically not move like to the opposite direction at all, and instead I can go down, right? So like see how I'm kind of moving downward and then up, like that would be anticipation as well. So it's not always just left and right, you know. And it's also on like a lot smaller of a scale, right? It's going to be on like pretty much every action. So try to get it in there. Try to get it in there. All right. So staging, this one's pretty lame because I feel like it's a cop out, because their staging is essentially composition, right? So when you're composing a shot, right, the way that you frame the characters says a lot about them. It says it almost more than the characters are saying themselves, right? So the reason I think this is lame is because I don't know, they're just compressing an entire other art form of like photography and like a composition into one little principle. So I don't know, it feels weird. Something about it feels weird. Like I feel like they should break it up more or something. But yeah, staging. Think about your camera when you're setting up your shots. We'll go more into that later, but yeah, your camera is essentially another character in your shot. I want you to think of it as a character and give it that sort of attention, right? We don't want to just plop a camera in there all willy-nilly. I know I definitely did when I was in college because I didn't give a shit about camera, but like, you know, it's important. It's important. It says a lot. It says a lot. Yeah, and then there's another principle that's kind of more for drawing, but it pose to pose or straight ahead, right? So we're essentially going to be working. It ends up kind of feeling like a blend of those two, you know, when I'm working at least. But essentially, we're going to go in and get our key poses in 3D space, get all of our limbs moved in there, get keys on all of those key frames right there, those key poses, you know, and then we're going to let the computer interpolate for us. However, in the past, straight ahead would have been just drawing each subsequent image at the same time, right? But, you know, the computer changed a lot of things. So I feel like this principle doesn't quite apply as much. Here's a huge one: overlap and follow through. This is so important. This is going to be on the homework tonight, actually. Essentially, whenever you move mass, right, it's going to have, it has some weight. So like if not only do I have the anticipation, but like, like if I'm like super drunk and like not thinking about stabilizing my upper body, like I'm gonna have so much overlap, right? As I'm like kind of trudging along, like look at how limp my arms are, like they're just free floating. Boom, you know, I don't care about anything, you know. So that's what's gonna happen there. It gives you a lot of it gives a lot of natural feel to the scene, because often I see students so often just leave all the spine controls on like the same key. So then a character will move like this, right? That like that just looks so robotic, right? Because I'm like actually flexing my core to maintain that pose. But instead, you're gonna not have that at all. You're gonna have some at the end. This waist is gonna go past. It's gonna do a little bit of overshoot. It's gonna do a settle, but then my spine is also like counterbalancing that. So like it might delay just a little bit at the beginning and then kind of just shoot over, just do a little bit of overlap. So it's gonna be a journey to figure out how much to use and like when to use it. But pretty much there's gonna be a small amount of overlap and follow through on everything. And you'll see how important it is, especially when we get like a humanoid rig in the scene, you know. All right. Slow in, slow out. Okay, so this one is basically when you're moving something, don't just boom, start like super fast. Like even when I did that, even when I do a fast acceleration, like you can see it even on this choppy like frame rate, there's a little bit of like acceleration time. There's a little bit, it's fast because I'm moving it fast, right? But like there's always going to be acceleration time. So when you're moving into a pose, boom, use a lot of slowing like this. The only time that you don't is like if you're selling an impact or something, right? Like if someone's falling on the ground, boom, you keep the widest spacing between those keys. Like I don't know if you can see the spacing between the keys on this little diagram, but like there's more keys, there's more frames closer together right there of that cube being on either end. But if someone's hitting the ground, like if they get knocked out or something, then that's going to be wide spacing between those poses lower to the ground, you know. So that's when we don't use slow out, you know, and then they'll bounce, right? Because that force has to go somewhere, you know. But yeah, so that's when we don't use slow out, but everything else uses slow in and slow out. It's basically just simulating inertia, which is the kind of concept that everything that has mass takes energy to move that mass, right? So we can't just immediately accelerate. We need to kind of warm up to that, right? All right, and then arcs. Oh my gosh. Oh, arcs, beautiful one. Basically, if you just like watch my hands gesturing, like even if I'm like moving kind of like if I'm just like freely gesturing, all of my movements are going along arcs, right? It's never like just straight lines, you know, like otherwise it just looks like I'm doing like some kind of like robot dance, you know? So that's why we use arcs, is because that's how we describe our movement, especially for a graceful character like a ballerina or something. Like there's gonna be arcs everywhere on that. Secondary action is basically an additional piece of movement besides the main movement. So like if you're walking along, but then you're also like tossing an apple in your hand or something, or if you're walking and then you're like unscrewing a water bottle and like drinking it, you know. So it's just an additional action on top of it. I never liked that principle. It seemed like another weird one. Same with timing, right? Because timing, look at this. Timing is basically, you know, adding more frames to one side or another to influence how fast and snappy that animation looks. We're going to address this in another concept called breakdowns today. I'm going to be talking about that. But yeah, so that's the overall concept of it. I find that it's kind of lame because this also involves like slow in and slow out. But I guess it's more to address like if you're trying to make something fast, you know, like you need to pay attention to the timing, you know. Oftentimes animators will call this spacing, because it's like talking about how visually where it is in the frame compared to that last frame, right? The space between the frames. So that's you'll hear me say it too, because that's I'm just used to using that language. Exaggeration, huge, especially for students. Like you got, like I said, you guys are all going to go on this journey of being like, okay, I need to exaggerate everything, which is true. Everything needs to be exaggerated. And then you'll go on another journey of being like, I've exaggerated everything way too much. Like think about the Indiana Jones grab that I did, where I'm like, oh, like instead of grabbing the statue, like just going in and just, yeah, like doing that, I did a, wow, like it's just super, super weird. So exaggerate all that you can, you know, but keep it tasteful, right? Keep it controlled. So yeah, that's exaggeration. And then, my friends, this is one of my favorite principles because it doesn't really matter anymore for us. Draftsmanship. And this is honestly where sometimes one of the weakest parts of an animation, right? I've seen some animators that are like amazing, but they can't draw at all. So like they by virtue of that, they wouldn't be able to 2D animate, you know. In 3D, we don't need to worry about that. We're not drawing anything. The computer's drawing it for us. Now, basically what this would be, instead of draftsmanship for the 3D age, it would be solid modeling and rigging, you know, because that's what allows us to move those characters around, right? And then last is appeal. And it's kind of, you know, ethereal in concept, but it's like, dude, just make it appealing, make it look good. Like, and that's kind of what this obstacle course that we're going to break into soon is for. Is that we want you to sort of get into making animation look, you know, snappy, fast, cool, you know. So yeah, we'll be addressing appeal, since it kind of reaches through all of these other ones too, you know, like every single one of these principles adds appeal if you're pushing on it, and if you execute it nicely, it adds appeal, you know. I would say that since there isn't a principle for posing, like actually posing the character and getting a nice silhouette and stuff, I would say most of that falls under appeal, right? So as if your character's like sad, like don't just pose them like this and make them all bored. Like pose them like, I don't know, just play around with like get them like looking down at the ground, kind of break it to the camera, you know, like get them a little bit more in their own mind, you know, like really push it, you know. So when we're talking about appeal, it's kind of mostly talking about how well we're using the other principles and how well we're posing, I feel like. So yeah, but those are all the principles, y'all. Any questions about the principles? Any questions at all? Alrighty. I hope to see some nice usage of the principles as we go through these critiques. It'll be cool. But yeah, so let's talk about more animation resources. So boom, this is the old way of doing things, just drawn on paper. We're going beyond. We don't need this. Turn this off. Lame. But this book though is amazing, right? So the Animators Survival Kit, I have a copy around here somewhere. I just moved, so it's, oh, there it goes. Found it. Boom. Animators Survival Kit, the very same. And essentially it is like the Bible of animation, right? Like it breaks down so many things, it has so many pages of it. And dude, it's a real good collection, especially if you're struggling on it, because like I'm going to explain things the way that I learned and other people learned, but like you might learn in a entirely different way. So like if something in this book resonates better with like how you understand animation, then like by all means go for it. I'm all about you guys branching out into other resources, you know. So yeah, there's that, and there's also The Illusion of Life. This is like another just core animation book. I will say though, guys, that I never read those books. I never read them. I only read them when I started teaching animation to be like, well, like how do other people learn about it? Because I had a much different journey to learning how to do this stuff. And that's why I will say that it sounds like a bit of a cop-out, you know, but there's learning resources around for animation all around us, right? Like it's not even in books. I'm talking about like films, right? Like we're watching actors all the time in films. Like I'm sure that there's a performance out there that's like stuck in your mind, you know, and you're like, man, why did that work so well, right? Like what about it created that, right? And it could be composition or it could be the actual actor's choices, you know. Or if you have like that friend that does that one weird quirk, like that they like when they're nervous or something, they'll start like stroking their hair or something, like you can take that and like catalog it away and be like, ah, I can use that for something else. So like, so when we're talking about resources, yeah, sure, these books are great, but like just analyze real life as well, because real life has more physics in it, right? It has more emotion in it. It has all that just ready for you. So really kind of incorporate that into your work as well, right? But yeah, and I always say like becoming an animator makes you a bit of a freak, because you'll like start looking at like stuff that you wouldn't normally, like your friends will just be hanging out or something, or you'll be like walking down the road and then you'll see someone with like a really interesting like hand pose, and you're like, oh man, I need to remember that so I can like animate that later, you know? So like like I said, there's so much there's so many resources around you at all times. So just keep that in mind, y'all. Keep that in mind. I really want you guys to draw upon real life. And like when we get to it, I am going to recommend that we all shoot our own reference, right? Even if it might feel cringy, you know, bro, we're animators. We're going to be cringe. It just comes with the territory, right? So, so yeah, I really recommend filming yourself for another piece of reference and like as a resource, you know. All right. So that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it for resources. Let's see, 543. Okay, yeah, I'll break into the next part of the lecture. However, we'll be going on. We're gonna be going on break from 6 to 7. So yeah, just be prepared for that. All right. Actually, maybe we can go to dinner before that. Yeah, I'm going to show you guys a sneak preview of the homework before we go on to actually like doing it, and me showing you other stuff as well, just so we know where we're going to end up, right? So let's open scene. Let's do this. Yeah. All right. So essentially what we have set up is a little obstacle course, right? So this is gonna be your homework. Essentially what's gonna go on is in this top row, this green one, this is all the stuff that I've animated so far, right? And then in this bottom one, this is like what you have to work with. So you're not gonna be affecting these at all. Like you're not gonna be changing any of these green ones. Keep that in mind. You're only be messing around with the blue ones. And this is the first time I've done this assignment, by the way. So I'm curious as to how it's going to work out. But basically, each one of these is going to be covering a different trial, right? So I'm talking about making this. So you'll see if I play it, this cube just kind of slowly interpolates back and forth. But then this top one, you know, I'm just adding interest to it, right? And we're essentially doing that with what they call a breakdown, right? And we're going to get into that more in a little bit, but yeah, so that's going to be adding interest there. This one's just a classic bouncing ball. I'll show a bouncing ball at some point as well, and I'll be going over each of these different trials. And then this one's, you know, overlap. It's kind of simulating. It's simulating a body, right? All of these are supposed to be. I'm trying to get you guys to think of these as different like body parts or something that you're animating, that you're moving around. So that's why I'm using this, because there has to be a lot of Like just look at how much more dead this bottom one is than that top one. Right? So if we just let that play, look at that. They get to the end at the same time. But that top one just has so much more life. And it has a sort of feel about it. Like it feels like a clowny sort of movement, right? Because they're just like all floppy and kind of like, you know, like ending up there. But like, you know, that's great, you know. And then this one down here, it's getting into the same start and end pose, right? But like I'm kind of doing a little bit of overshoot on there, a little bit of overshoot. And y'all don't have to copy this exactly the same way, but like I want you guys to be thinking about how you can improve this animation, because it's essentially simulating pose to pose and then dealing with all the in-betweens and trying to get some nice animation out of it, right? Now this last one is it's IK-FK switching, and I'm doing it the manual way. And so if you see this, it's basically a concept that I see a lot of students struggle with, and we'll get into it later, but it's basically showing you kind of the difference between IK and FK and like when to use them and how to like kind of grab onto objects in your scene as this kind of weird disembodied arm. A little bit weird, but you know, nothing that we're too worried about. But yeah, so it's just all about adding appeal to each one of these. And what you're going to do is just fix these bottom ones. And then you're going to do just a file save scene as, and you're going to turn that in on Beachboard. I'll need to open up the Dropbox file for you guys. But yeah, so that's what we'll be doing. Let me write a note to open that Dropbox file. But yeah, so that's the homework. It's nothing too crazy, right? Nothing too crazy, but it has a lot of concepts that you guys are gonna be running into. Like I want you guys to think of these as not just like, oh, box, you know, like don't think of it just as a box. Like try to get like some feel into that. Try to get some appeal. Try to think of this as like, I need to approach my just pelvis movement like this, right? Because that pelvis is the center of gravity. If you're not adding, if you're keeping it like lame and evenly slowing in and slowing out, like this bottom one, you're gonna have some lame animation. You know, it's not gonna be fun. So make sure that you're kind of injecting that and kind of taking these to heart. So this ball, like try to make it snappy, right? Make it snappy, make it pop up, make it have a little bit of settle back into itself at the bottom, right? Got to get that settle, got to get that little bit of overshoot, try to get the overshoot in this torso as well, right? So this is why I'm doing this, because like, you know, the past few semesters we've really struggled with that concept, and I'm trying to break it apart into the different body parts, like while we're still doing this before we hop into a full rig, because you're gonna have all this spine, and then you're gonna have an arm, like 2 arms attached. Like it's gonna be a lot of controls, but you know, it's with more controls comes more fun when we're messing around with the characters. But yeah. All right. Any questions about the homework for now? I'm going to go back over it once we get to that part later. But any questions just for now? All righty. All righty. Okay, so it's 5:51. Let's call it early for dinner here. Let's go to dinner, and then let's be back at 7 o'clock. So be back at 7, y'all. So yeah, that's when I'm gonna get back, turn my webcam back on, and we'll resume the lecture. All right, see you guys. Boom. Screen share screen. Let's open up a new scene. Yeah, it's not safe. There we go. Okay, so basically when we're animating, like I said, just have your outliner open and have your graph editor open. Like I know it's going to be annoying having like that much screen taken up by just such a big panel, but I want you guys to keep it open because slowly you'll figure out its secrets. What I'm going to do right now, though, is go over the graph editor, and I'd like everyone to join me. Let's just create a Polygon primitive cube. So you can go up to your create menu, Polygon primitive cube right there. Boom, perfect. And there we go. So we have our cube sitting in our scene. I'm also going to go and create a plane. I'm just going to scale that up just so I have like a frame of reference, right? So just so I know where like my floor level is. Also, while we're at that, this goes more into setting up your scene. In our situation right here, this cube is going to be our character, right? So that's our character. Now, something that we want to do is select this, right? We're going to be selecting that character a lot, right? When we're going to be posing it around and stuff. Problem is if I drag select through, it's going to get that environment. So something that's really nice to do is select your environment and then hit this little button in your, let's shrink chat a little bit. Hit this little button in your channel box layer editor. See this little tab over here? Make sure you're on that. What we can do is just click that button in the display layers. Boom, there we go. So with that display layer, what that allows us to do is just turn it on and off, as you probably know. What you can also do is click this last empty box, and it will be T. I think that's for, what does that stand for? It's like transform or something, or like, I don't know. Basically, it just turns it into a wireframe that you can't select, which isn't great because we do want to still see it. So if we click that button again, boom, it becomes a reference. That's what that R stands for. And then you can now have your cube on top. Boom. So now you can see like when you're going through that floor plane, when you're not. We want to be really delicate with the floor plane, right? Because if you don't respect the floor plane, if like a character's foot goes straight through it or something, or clips into it, then immediately that illusion of life is kind of just lost, right? Like it's just gone. So let's just get this, let's get this cube moving over here, right? So I want you guys to follow along. For Diane, how did you create the plane? I keep trying, and it is vertical. You might have your camera oriented in a weird way, Sydney. So if you look in the bottom left, boom, you're going to see a little tiny manipulator down here that shows your axes, X, Y, and Z. So just make sure that Y is like facing up, you know, because I could be looking at everything from like this direction, you know, and then I'd be like, man, why is this facing the wrong way? You know, so make sure make sure up is up in where you are. Make sure that this Y is pointing upward. Next, if it's still messing up, you can always rotate it, right? So if this object is coming in rotated for some reason, first I would say go to your create and then go to the Polygon Primitives, and then go to this option box next to the plane. And because some tools are just not going to work in Maya, and you have to reset them a lot. So what you want to do is do edit and then reset settings. Boom, that's going to just bring it to its default setting, like it's Maya default settings, because you might have like, boom, might be on like a different axis like this. You see that? So that's one way to fix that. The reset worked. Nice. Very cool. An alternative would be like if it was coming in at a strange rotation. Remember that you can always hold J and then you get a snap rotation. So if you're on like 90 degrees, then you can snap to that being completely flat. You can snap to it being completely rotated. Oh, whoops. See, rotated on this direction as well. So it's like aligned to that axis. And you can also type those numbers in here in your channel box. Lots of different ways to go about fixing that. I want you guys to know those, because like those are conceptually different, but also relevant to animation still. So let's turn that layer back onto reference. Oops. But there you go. It's always, it is a good idea to double click this and name it like environment. Boom. And you can get even more particular about that, be like environment house interior, environment house lights, you know, like, so you can kind of divvy up your scene nice with this display layer setup. All right. So now that we got this like basic scene, we can start to sort of mess around with this cube and start animating. That display option doesn't appear for me. Natalia, could you make sure that you're on channel box / layer editor right here? It's this little fold out. If you can't find,
I'm on that one.
Oh, and this display layer is gone. It could be dragged all the way down.
Well, the display is there, but the options to make it into like a reference isn't there.
Oh, this isn't there. Is
Yeah.
the window shrunk down too far or something? Try like pulling this out. Try rolling this.
No, it doesn't appear.
Bar as well. Huh. Do you mind sharing your screen for me?
Yeah.
Oh, guys, it's the first screen share of the semester. Heck yeah. Don't worry, there'll be a lot more of those.
It says host is disabled screen sharing.
Yep, that's how I like it. No one's allowed to share the screen. 1 second. Let's see. God, I have to stop my share to watch yours first of all, and then let's go. Boom. There you go. All right. You should be ready to you should be able to do it now. Nice. Okay. All right. And oh, it's because you haven't created the layer yet. So so with that selected, go to the right hand side of the screen, to that display layers area. And then you see that button. Oh yeah, create layer from selected. That'll work. Yeah, that's what that little button does. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Let's get back on road. Here we go. Share. Nice. This thing's all weird now. Let's see. Yeah, that's fine. I'll just shrink it down. Nice. Okay. So now that's on a reference. Yeah, you can select other objects. Like if I have that selected and I right click it, I can do add selected objects if I want. If I didn't get like all the environment in that first pass, you know. So that's really cool. I like controlling things that way. Next up, what I want to do is set up our selection, our selection sets up here. So this base, if you're in default Maya, this might be compressed. I want everyone to open up your selection mask icons here. It's this like really tiny sliver of a button. Boom. If you click that, it'll be expanded there. So you see that. Does anyone having trouble finding these buttons? They're hidden under this little expandable guy right here. All right, if no one's having trouble, then what we do is basically, there's gonna be a lot of different elements in the scene, right? But as animators, we don't really need to work with the majority of them, right? So we're gonna get a rig from the tech art department, and they're the people that make all those skeletal structures, do all the skin weights, all that sort of stuff, and they send it over to you. And they don't like it when you touch those skeletal joints directly. They always want you using the rig, which we'll be going into later tonight when I show you guys the homework. But for now, just know that we want to turn off joints, right? I don't want joints in there. And you can see what these buttons are by looking at this little tooltip display part. so if you scroll, if you mouse over these, you can see this tooltip kind of updating like as to what it is. We don't want to select handle objects. We don't want to select deformation, dynamics, or rendering. Now we will eventually, because like the rendering objects, I believe it also includes camera. And then the question mark also includes something called a locator, which is what we use to sometimes remap animation to different, or like remap and track animation in general. But we just need to make sure that we have surface objects selected for now, because this is a surface object, this little mesh. And then in the future, when we have a rig, we'll even turn that off, right? So then it'll only be this curve object that's highlighted, you know? So that's gonna be really cool for us. But for now, like, let's make sure we turn this back on. Otherwise, we won't be able to select this cube. And I want everyone to select the cube and press S. Boom, first key set of the semester. There we go. There we go. So that's exactly what it sounds like. Essentially, what pressing S does is tells Maya that you want a key on this object, the one that you have selected. It's only for the one that you have selected. It's not going to key the entire character. It's only going to key the body parts that you have selected, right? If you're working with a full body. So whatever you have selected, it's going to save that these transform values, right? See how all of these channels are highlighted red? That's what that S does, right? Remember, it's going to be just telling Maya to, boom, bookmark that position and that location of that object, right? So now, if you scroll further on your timeline, boom, let's go to like frame 15, and let's move it up in the air, and then press S again. Now I don't have to, since I have this auto key, so it's going to key that Y channel automatically for me. Observe right here, you can see I just undid that, but I have no keys on here. It's that pink color. That means that there is a key on that channel, just not on that particular frame that you have selected. However, if I move up on Y and then let go, because of auto key, if you watch this Y translation channel on the right-hand side of the screen, boom, oof, we got a key there, and you can see my graph editor is going wild. Heck yeah. So this is really cool, right? That we were able to see it update as we're animating. And then let's go back down to our starting level right here, and I'm just visually moving it back down. Very nice. 0.505. Since this is a 1x1 cube, we could be very particular and type in 0.5. That way we know it's perfectly on the ground. Boom. All that is lined up there. Not necessary though, you know. In fact, I like you guys animating by eye a lot too, just while we're starting, because, you know, creatures, people, we don't move perfectly, right? So, you know, if you're off a little bit, it will add a little texture to the piece, you know. But yeah, so there you go. And then now if we play our glorious animation, you can see it. Woo. Very fun, very fun. Can anyone pointing out what's wrong with this? If we want like a nice little bouncing cube, what's wrong with this animation, y'all? What's wrong with it?
It's just
everything moves like the same way. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, exactly that.
Music to my ears, my friends. Yeah, you guys are all right. You guys have been through it with me before, so you know. I got squash and stretch and singular speed. Doesn't follow any principles. See, it does technically follow a principle, Joseph. It's just only following slow in, slow out, you know. So it's just boring, right? Like, it's being possessed by a robot poltergeist. Technically, I guess, if you consider Maya a poltergeist, right? So right now, I'm gonna add a breakdown, right? So what is a breakdown? Now, a breakdown is kind of a general term, right? It has a lot of things intermixed with it. So if I go back to my, let's see, animation, here we go, breakdowns. This is a direct extraction from the Animator Survival Guide, this handy book right here, right there. Essentially, the idea is that you never want to just go from point A to point B linearly, right? You don't want to you don't want to just go straight there. That's going to be boring. Like right here it says, Dick, don't go from A to B. Go from A to X to B, A to G to B. I know it's hard to read. Go somewhere else in the middle, right? And so we need to spice this up. Now, there's a lot of other things that are just physically wrong with this current animation, right? But we can fix those. But like he uses this example of like happy to sad, right? And then this would technically work, but it's dull. Now, that dullness is not always bad, right? Like you could use that for comedic effect. Like if literally nothing else on the character moved except for his mouth, like that could create humor. Like you can always derive stuff and bend these rules, you know. But if you add like a little surprise, then it's like, ooh, notices something, and then he gets pretty bummed out by it, you know. This is kind of more in terms of timing, this one. Like if you wait more on that smiling face and then drop to the sad, it's gonna just create a little bit more interest in terms of timing, a little bit of texture there. If you do like a big up on that smile and then down, it's like really kind of, it's like a punch in the gut, you know. If you like look up, it's like kind of like he's like kind of almost breathing in, I feel like, from that, like, and then like admitting that he's sad, you know, like kind of preparing for it. But like, look at how many different ways there are to do it, you know. So there's so many options. Now, this one is not like we're not dealing with an emotional scene right here, right? Unless you have a considerable attachment to Bouncing Box, which, you know, Bouncing Box is kind of a legend, so I could see it happening. But if you look here, this is more what we're dealing with, right? We want to be all. I want to address this early. It doesn't quite apply as much here, but it's going to apply during the homework more. But essentially, when you have A and B, and then this is a pose right in the middle. See, that's boring spacing, you know. If you kind of add a little bit of delay on the top of the head, it gives it a different feel. If you kind of nod forward, it gives another feel, right? It gives another effect in there. So lots of stuff to play with here. Lots of stuff to play with. But essentially what we're missing is a breakdown. We have A and B, but we need that nice spicy middle pose, right? So what I'm going to do is essentially very similar to this one, right? We're starting from A, and then we're going even further into A, and then going into B. I'm going to do that. But essentially what we're missing is we need some sort of, we need anticipation here, right? We need anticipation. We need squash and stretch. That square needs to squish down onto the ground. And the way we're going to do that is just by moving it down there, right? So I'm just visually moving it down there. Now I could be like a little bit more precise with this, but like I said, you know, if we just visually align it and we're pretty precise with how we scale it and stuff, boom, it's going to look right, you know. And then press S after you change that. After you change those channels, you want to make sure that it records that. And I have a gripe with this now. So now it's going to look a little bit better. It's going to look a little bit better. But now you might notice a problem, right? So it squashes down, boom, stretches, and then it remains flat in the air. See that? So now you're probably like, what's going on, right? Basically, we need to make sure that it's setting these keys back to 1 right here. So this scale, and you can find what I'm talking about, right? So like if you're visually looking at your object move around, and I want you guys to get in the habit of kind of diagnosing visually what's going on that's incorrect, right? In this case, it's the scale. So that way you automatically know that something's wrong in these scale channels, and you can see it here. Oh, scale Y. It's got this curve that goes down, but then it doesn't come back up, right? So I'm going to go on this key. I'm going to press S again. So I'm just going to select that key and press S to get a key on that timeline. And notice how no change in value has happened yet. It's fine. It's fine. We're just going to select that key right there. So I'm just going to select that key in this viewport. It's kind of easier to drag select over singular keys. I've noticed sometimes. That's just kind of how I've animated it. It's going to be a lot easier selecting it that way. And then you have your amount right here. You can even see it in your channel blocks that it's a little bit flat on the y-axis. So you could type it in here and then press S. Oops, I pressed Control S. My bad. So there you go, S. And that sets that key. I'm just saying press S for those of you who haven't yet switched over to auto keyframe. But yeah, so now it's popping up and it looks marginally better. Definitely looks marginally better. But we still have a few problems, right? Can anyone tell me what's wrong specifically with this squash and stretch right here? What's wrong with this squash and stretch?
It stays crouched during the way up.
Yep, absolutely. So we essentially need a frame of it being stretched out right there. We need the stretch part of it, right? Perfect. And this is going through the ground, but we can always scale that ourselves. I'm just going to leave it for now because we're going to still be modifying this. So now it definitely looks better on the way up. There's still a problem though. What's the problem, y'all? What's the problem with this squash and stretch?
It needs to stretch also coming down.
Michelle says the squash doesn't really flow. Are you that's a bit of an interesting note because I want to dive in there a little bit more. What doesn't flow about it, Michelle? I have an inkling of what you might be talking. I don't know. I'm thinking I'm thinking you might be referring to timing, because it's a bit even in the timing. Essentially, we have an A right here and then a B, and then we're just letting the computer do all the work of this. So it's kind of just going in slowly right there, right? Just slowly. So what we can do instead is kind of break it up. So if we want to kind of shrink in a bit fast, a little bit more abrupt, we can do that, right? So I'm gonna take a key in here. I'm gonna press S, right? So that's gonna give me a key on this Y channel. In fact, if I wanted keys on every one of those, you can select the object, make sure that it has all of these channels lit up in red. That's how you know that you're on a keyed frame. And what I can do is go into, actually, I'll just visually do it. So I'll make it a little bit more squished right here. So now see how that curve is kind of getting more exaggerated into that, and then it's going to explode out. I feel like it's going to give it a nice effect. I also kind of want to change the timing a little bit, right? Because like we're saying in these breakdowns, sorry, I'm trying to find the breakdowns handout. Boom. Basically we had A to B, right? But now I added a key, and I'm going to add a little bit more time to the other side of that key. So we're going to have a little bit more anticipation, you know, kind of simulate building that strength. And I'm going to show you guys how to retime an object with this, right? So we added this key right here. We added this is the new key. This is our current frame. This was our original like down right here. So now So it's kind of going a little bit faster in there. It looks pretty cool. Looks pretty cool. But I want this time between this last key and this key to increase, right? So which way would I slide these keys on the graph to kind of increase that time? Any ideas, guys?
If you want to extend the length of it, you drag the keys to the right. And if you want to shorten it, pull to the left.
Mm-hmm. There you go. Diego's got it. Diego's got it 100%. So essentially, the gap between these keys, the timing, also known as the spacing, needs to be exaggerated, right? It needs to be, we need to prolong that. So I can retime this by drag selecting over all of these keys, make sure that it's highlighting all these channels. And then I'm going to press W, because you press W, you're in your move tool. And then I'm going to middle click drag around. See how it's giving me a bunch of different results. Whoa, doing a bunch of crazy stuff. What we want to do is hold shift and middle click and drag to the right. What that does is that it's going to constrain you moving keys to an axis, right? And we're going to constrain it to moving along the same plane on Y, right? So notice how their Y values are not changing. So that's going to be nice, right? So now, see that? See how like I mixed up the timing on that? I kind of, by pushing that key down and then exaggerating the time at the end, it's giving it more anticipation, but it's also it's not just giving it more anticipation in a linear fashion, right? It's giving it more anticipation, and it's also adding a breakdown of offsetting the timing to be more exaggerated on that end, right? And then that's why you can see this scale curve. Look at that. So we started at that regular top scale, and then it got squeezed down for a while, and then it explodes out. So this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about breakdowns, y'all. And it's going to be a hard concept to really get, but like when you do, whew, you get so much life into that animation, so much life. What were the steps to moving it again? Like moving the cube in general, or moving these keys, Natalia? The keys. Okay, yeah. So absolutely. So if you want to retime something, make sure you have it selected. If you're retiming a whole character, select the entire character, right? Because these keys exist on whatever you have selected. So I can't retime this if I don't have it selected. Same for a full character. To actually go in and retime it, you need to select the keys that you're going to exaggerate. So I wanted to increase the time between these two keys right here, this one and this one, between these two. So what I did, I drag selected all those keys after that time. And then I pressed W, because remember W is your, oops, I'm in chat. There we go, close that. W is your move tool, E is rotate, R is scale. Since I wanted to move those keys, I pressed W, right? So I pressed W and then shift. So I'm holding shift right now, middle click and drag to the right and the left. Now you can also hold shift and middle click, drag up and down. See that? And then no matter how left and right my mouse goes, it's always going to be constrained along that up and down. So shift and then middle click drag is how you kind of precisely edit these keys. And you'll see me do that a lot. Yeah, no problem. No problem. Thanks for asking the question. It's important stuff. All right. But now it's looking good. It's looking good. The end is lackluster. I'll be the first to admit it, you know. But it's looking better. It's looking better. So now what we can do is talk about copying keys. Now I don't want you guys to exactly copy these keys right here, you know. Since like this is going to eventually be abstracted from just a cube, like this would be a character jumping, right, rather than a cube, you know. So you don't want to copy your poses straight up when you're working with a character like that, but I want to make sure you guys know how to copy keys in general. So we have a few options, right? Since I kind of want to land on the same, like with this same exact pose right here on 11. I want to land on, let's see, how many keys do I have between this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Boom. So on 23, I want it to be at the same pose as 11, right? So if I drag my timeline over that 11th key and then I right click, if I do copy, boom, it's going to say time slider copy key. It's exactly what we're looking for. And then I can click on frame 23, scrub over to 23, right click, paste. Boom, there you go. So now that same key is right there. Boom. Now you'll notice a lot of strange stuff happening with the animation afterwards, but that's because my curves are all messed up, because that's how copy keys work sometimes. So you always have to refine your curves after you copy keys like that. Now, well, a word of warning, and let's get this out of the way while we're dealing with a simple scene, right? So we have this cube right here, right? And we wanted to copy that key. So we used copy and we used paste, right? Makes a lot of sense. Makes complete sense. The problem though, is that if you are in this viewport, if you have this viewport selected, and let me save my scene. It's just a good habit to get into. Save scene. And then I'm just going to do cube bounce. So if you wanted to copy paste that key, you might really want to just Control C, Control V, right? So if I mouse over to that key and I'm like, all right, Control C, Control V, nice, I did it. But then you'll look down here, file read in 0.044 seconds. What is it talking about? Well, like what on earth is this talking about? And look, observe what happened, y'all. Essentially, it just put in another group and it pasted that same cube into that group. So instead of copying and pasting the key, Control C, Control V, copied and pasted that entire cube. Now, the reason I'm telling you guys about this is because it's awful. If you're working on a rig, like say you have like a really dense rig and it's like doing some cool movement, and then you're like, oh, I just want to copy this pose and paste it at the end of the animation. And you do Control C, Control V, it's not gonna copy and paste that key. It's gonna paste that entire rig, that like entire humanoid or like whatever you have in the scene. It's gonna copy and paste that into your scene, so you'll have two rigs. It's so annoying to like try to delete because there's a lot of like custom shit going on in those rigs. So don't use the hotkey if you have this viewport selected, right? If you're trying to copy and paste a key. Now you can use Control C, Control V in the graph editor. Heck yeah. So the graph editor is amazing. And if let me delete this key, boom. So if I wanted these keys right here, boom, Control C, Control V. So Control C, Control V works in here, not in here. See how when I click in here, like in this window, there's like a faint gray border to it. That's how I know I have that window selected. If I click over to here, like look up in this area right here, like at the top of this, like if I left click right now, you'll see the gray highlight up here. Boom, see that? So now I have that. Now I have this window selected. So make sure if you're using Control C, Control V, make sure you have this window selected over here. That's, I'm telling you that now, but like it's gonna happen to someone. Someone's gonna paste their character into their scene again. I hope it's not you. You know, it's gonna be one of you, but like it's gonna happen. It always happens. So it's annoying. Something to work around. Once you do it and you get scarred by the process of having to delete all the nodes of the rig out of your scene, you'll be like, okay, I'm going to commit that to memory, and then you'll become hypersensitive to where this like little like faint gray highlight is. So yeah, that'll just come with time. But yeah, awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. I did it, and I just closed the program. Definitely valid. Definitely valid. Not worth it. Yep. 100% understand. But yeah. Oh, did I miss a message in chat? Oh, I've got to switch computers real quick. Okay, yeah, that's all good. That's all good. But yeah, so now I have this kind of stretched out landing pose right here. And then what we're going to do is I'm just going to copy this other squish right here. Boom. So I'm going to right click, copy that. Boom. Paste it. There we go. And then you'll notice some weirdness going on right there, right? So see how this cube's kind of bouncing up strangely twice right there. One is because it needs this key, right? So I'm going to copy and paste this default key at the end. Boom. But see that weird little bounce up in the middle there? I don't like that. And here's where you kind of have to like play detective, right? You have to be like, what's causing that, right? So I can tell that it's an up and down movement. So moving up and down, that means that we're dealing with translation, and up and down means that we're dealing with translate Y, right? So if I click on the translate Y curve, can anyone tell me why we have that weird little bounce up in this graph? I want you guys to be able to look at this graph and understand.
It's in the second half where it inclines, then it has a little bump before it continues to fall again.
Perfect. Yep, exactly. Do y'all see that? It's this one right here. Boom. So on this little slope down on this decline, it gets to the bottom of it right here. Boom. And then boom, pops up again. And then that's what's creating part of that weirdness right there. And what's creating that is the tangents, right? So tangents, another buzzword for y'all. Tangents are attached to every single one of these keys. See this? These tangents are going straight out. They're flat tangents right here at the top. Random question. Would you suggest starting with auto interpolation or in steps? Or would this be more of a personal preference at this stage? It is a personal preference. I'm just gonna talk about tangents in general. Like this is gonna be the tangent section of the class. So remind me if I don't answer your question during this about that. But yeah, essentially what Joseph is talking about and what's causing this problem is the tangents. These tangents are basically the handles of a Bezier curve. And if you're familiar with the pen tool in Photoshop, it's the same exact. I'm pretty sure it's the same exact math that they use for that as well. But like, if you select these, you can change these tangents. So see how these tangents become selectable. I usually like to left click drag over a tangent and kind of mess around with it this way. You can also select some of these and deal with multiple tangents at once. It's not always useful, but this is how you can fix it. Another way to affect tangents, I guess you could call this a tangent. Yep, very true. I appreciate it. Another way that we can affect this is with the tangent buttons up here, right? So we're gonna have a lot of tangent presets. Looks like they added some new ones in 2020. EMC, interesting. I haven't messed around with those yet. But auto tangents are what I use normally because it's going to get you most of the way there. However, let's create some other examples, right? And this should be review because we go over this a lot, but if I create 2 of these keys, boom, right there. So now this other cube is moving along like that. It's going to the end. Some of these tangent types will kind of include some overshoot, which is really nice, which is spline, right? So if I click spline, see how it kind of goes straight through, and this tangent is pointing at the one before it. So that's going to create nice swoopy movement. I like to use this on if I'm doing like cool rotations or something, or if I want, like I said, a little bit of overshoot at the end, because see how on the graph the values start to go past that last key right there. Boom. That's going to give us some overshoot. So if you want to see what I'm talking about, if I press play, see that? So it's just a little bit, just a little bit. If I retime this, if I retime this key right here and push it even further, boom. See that? So that more gradual overshoot feels a lot nicer, right? Just, but that doesn't mean that you always have to have gradual overshoots. Like nature and people move very differently, or we move very wildly. So we're not always going to be doing smooth movements, but yeah. So this is looking better. This is looking better. This hop, it's all right, but right now we have this as an A, right? I kind of want the arc to be a little bit spicier, right? So I want to retime this boy. I want to give myself a little bit more time, but then also a little bit more hang time, right? So the way that I would approach that is, if this is the arc of if this is the height of the jump right here, this is the key that's responsible for that. I just want more time on both sides of that key, right? So if I want to retime that, we can do the regular method of pressing drag selecting, pressing W, and then holding Shift, middle mouse drag to the right. Boom. So that's a little bit more time right there before it. So you can see what that looks like. Now it's going up slower, and then it's falling faster because we didn't add that same amount of time on the other side. So what we can do is retime it there. However, I want to show you guys an alternate way to retime. If you hold Shift and left click drag on the timeline down here, boom. See how I'm able to start highlighting sections of this timeline. So this lets me select keys down here, and then these middle arrows on that selection, if I left click and drag, see how my timeline is getting more spread out in there? Perfect. That's exactly what we're looking for. That's exactly what we're looking for. So yeah, so that's just another way to scale your scale the time between your keys. And then let's see what we got now. Boom. Nice. So I like that hang time. But again, I'm gonna use this word throughout all of class. But not even this class, just all the classes in general. We need a breakdown, right? So right now we're letting Maya take the wheel on this one. It's just going straight up, straight down. We're using the default interpolation, which it's not awful, you know, it's not awful. And boom, what we can do instead is adjust this curve, right? We need it to be more arcing, right? So what we can do is press S before it and after. So I just got 2 more keys in there. And if I just move those up, see that effect that we're getting? It's getting a lot more round at the top. So that's giving us that nice, a nicer arc, right, than we had before. Like if I delete those keys, boom, a nicer arc than we had before. You can also get that effect by, let's go into it specifically, translate why. You can crank on these tangents as well and get a nice arc there too. And so that's essentially what I'm doing with those keys. It's just 2 different ways of doing it. The problem with this way is that if you end up resetting your, like, if you select the whole curve and then you press auto, boom, see how it kind of destroys that information that you put in there with those tangents that you custom made? That's the only problem that you got to watch out for there. So just be careful for that one. Let's move this out. Yeah, let's see what that looks like. This is gonna be essentially, I wanted to show you with the key, because that's essentially the breakdown of adding, let's see, of adding a more interesting point, an interesting B pose between the A and the C right there. That's essentially what I'm doing with this, except there's no key in here. I'm just showing you how to do it with tangents. But now, boom, see that? It just has so much more life when it's leaping like that. You see that? Feels so sick. Yeah. So yeah, that's essentially the breakdown of animation. To get back to Joseph's question about should we animate in stepped or auto tangents, that is, it does end up being personal preference. This question could more easily be approached during when we first bring in a human rig, because right now, if you looked at this in stepped, it would be a little bit, it wouldn't make as much sense, you know. It'd be like, what's going on here? You just see like at the bottom, and then at the very top, and then at the bottom again. But what Joseph is referencing is if all of these keys, if you select all of them and just make them stepped tangents, boom, see this? See how there's no interpolation at all? This is more akin to a classic pose-to-pose sort of setup for animators, right? So now if we play the animation, see that? Boom. So you can kind of tell what's going on there still, but it requires a little bit more imagination. It wouldn't need as much imagination if you had a whole person in the scene and more poses on your timeline there. But yeah, so that's what Joseph was referencing. Essentially, that comes down to personal preference. I keep mine on auto the whole time, but you're able to do whatever. I do want to note though that the way that I turn this into stepped is a little bit destructive, right? I just clicked this button to kind of force them all to be on auto, and notice that if I go back into, or I click this button to force them all into stepped. If I go back to auto, I lost some of that information of those tangents there. So let's undo that. And if you end up when you guys are animating humanoid characters, if you end up liking stepped preview, like the stepped version of it when you're blocking out the scene, which is completely fine. I know a bunch of animators that love working that way. What you can do is you can right click, go back to, let's see, where is it? Enable stepped preview, boom, right there. So now your graph is not going to get messed up, right? But it's going to play back as if it were stepped, tangents on everything. So that's a really cool feature of that. I usually I animate in auto though, so I will say that animating in step preview does kind of make you focus more on posing and kind of getting those silhouettes to read really nicely, which I always support, because I feel like posing is one of like the weakest parts of a student, like when they're learning. So please feel free to spice up your posing. Feel free to fiddle around with the step preview, but other than that, that's pretty much all you need to know for animation for right now. Any questions on that animation stuff? Okay. Any questions on that? Alrighty. Okay. All right, without further ado, I'm going to go show you guys the homework. I'm going to show you all the homework. So the homework should be available on Beachboard. Let's see, after animation, animation obstacle course. It's just this 2 MB file. I'm going to also, I'm going to move it into Discord as well. Oh gosh, Nemo, no. Let me put it in the general chat, because I like to use this resources folder for like more like this sort of stuff where you link to like a cool tutorial or something, or like export settings, so that sort of stuff, you know. So I'm going to go put this in general. So if you guys want that obstacle course and you don't want to go to beach board, then feel free to download it from there. Homework, there we go. All right, so pop that open and you'll see a fascinating world of animation. All right. So everything here is the obstacle course, right? It's not technically an obstacle course, you know. And you guys saw it earlier. The green column or the green row is all the stuff that I've done, you know, and the blue row is the stuff that you guys are going to do. So a lot of this stuff is broken animation, right? Or not broken. It's just like not as good, you know. And I want you guys to improve it, right? Now, a lot of this ends up just being breakdowns, right? Because I really want to hammer home breakdowns. I also want you guys to get used to the graph editor. Keep your graph editor open while you're doing this so you can diagnose exactly what's going wrong with your animation, right? So up here, we have a nice spicy movement of that cube. Kind of, I decided that it'd be fun to kind of give it like almost like that drag race feel of like the, and then it kind of scoots along there, and then kind of gets pulled back from the top, like a little bit into that final pose, and then set back on the ground. So do whatever you want for this one. Doesn't have to be exactly how I did it, but just give it a nice breakdown in here, right? We have an A to B pose. Give it a nice breakdown in there, right? So and you'll notice that my cube has a lot of breakdowns, right? Because I added one pose and I was like, hey, it needs to break down a little bit better there, you know? It needs to get a little bit better. So if I was to do this right now, I would say I could maybe let's try. What if I set a key right here? Boom. So there's a key right there. And then I'm going to, oh shoot. Let's see. I'm trying to give you guys the default key bindings for this stuff, but so basically when I set a key in the middle like this, the way that I see the previous pose, rather than using the ghosting features, which I've noticed have not worked in many years past, so I don't depend on them. I basically snap between the previous key and the next key. I believe that's period and comma. Could anyone set up two keys on the timeline here? Like select this box and press period or comma. I'm pretty sure that's what snaps between them. I rebound those buttons, so I'm not sure. Yes, okay, cool. So period and comma are gonna go scrub back and forth. So commonly if I wanna have a nice breakdown somewhere, I'll kind of go towards either a third or even like halfway through the animation, and I'll set a key, right? And then I'll use period and comma to go between those, right? So now I'm like, okay, I want to adjust the spacing right now, right? So this is default spacing. I want to really crank it in there. So see how much less space there is now between those two keys. See that? So the time remained the same, but I just squeezed it so much more. And then what I'm also going to do is I'm going to scale it, right? So let's scale it up. And I'm going to squish it out too. Boom. And let's give that a go. Let's see what this looks like. Okay, interesting. So it's I'm getting kind of jellyfishy vibes from that, you know? Now I kind of want to make it faster, right? So I'm gonna again go to like a sort of halfway point, maybe even a third kind of. I'm looking at the spacing between these two keys, right? Because we now this is our A and this is our C, so we need an interesting B for our breakdown, you know. So I'm gonna scale this out. I'm gonna shrink it in there, right? So it's gonna be flying like a laser beam across this ground right here. Yeah, okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. And I might give it a little bit of a pause. I might have it hit this end point first. So I want like a flat region right here in my graph. So if I copy and paste that and then make my tangents auto, it's going to really flatten that out there. So now let's see. Okay. So now I want to, instead, I want to push this a bit forward in time. There we go. See that? And I think this could be a way faster in general, you know, but you get the idea. You get the idea. I feel like it's got a cool effect. Maybe I'll kind of give it a little bit anticipation. Oh, there. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I like it. I could even exaggerate this stuff. I could make that this little anticipation even faster, you know? Let's actually make this shot through faster by compressing the time between these keys. And remember, I'm doing shift left click to select these on the timeline and then just left click dragging them afterwards. Remember, you can also retime it in here. In fact, I recommend for more dense scenes, retiming it with the graph editor rather than the timeline. But if I add a breakdown, because right now I have pretty linear interpolation almost between these two right here, boom. Wide pose, shrunken down pose. So if I want it to be more on this side of things, a nice little trick that I like to do is press S to conserve this key right here, and then just moving that key forward in time, right? And if you want to look at the graph editor to see what I'm doing there, let's look at scale Y. Should be going pretty nicely. Essentially, this is a boring A and a boring C interpolation between them, right? Like we have those two boring curves. I want that breakdown, right? And so I could go in, boom, set the key and kind of weight it to that side right there, right? But instead, another way to do that is to go right next to that other key, maybe like right here, press S, and then if I grab that entire key and shift it over, see what I'm doing? See how it's automatically creating a lot of nice sorry, I have animator brain right now. I'm like just looking at the animation. It creates a nice breakdown right there for us automatically, or not automatically, but pretty quickly. So I like that. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan. Boom. So do something like just get interesting breakdowns in there. Essentially, this is like breakdown practice right there, right? All right, so now let's get a bouncing ball. Same exact process that I was doing for that cube, right? And what we can do is press S right here. And then let's see, let's start squashing it down. So I'm going to stretch it out a little bit and I'm going to stretch it down, right? That's not enough though, right? Because now we lost our plant on the ground. Now we lost our plant on the ground. So what we can do is press W and then move it on the Y axis down. And then we need to be up in the air, right? We need to get an up in the air pose. And let's see, let's just move it up. And then I'm going to scale it up and scale it back in. And if I want to be really precise and not lose any of the scale difference, right? Because I started at a different scale, I could just select those starting keys, Control C in there, go to these end keys, Control V. See that? So now I have like that perfect scale amount in there. And so that's going along nicely. And yeah, so this part isn't too hard. You guys have done at least 4 bouncing balls in your college time, so nothing too hard there. Let's say I somehow got rid of the bar above the shelf. Is there an easy way to get that back? Let's see, the bar above the shelf. Oh, this one right here. Ooh, interesting. Let's see, Windows, UI elements. See if one of these bad boys is unchecked. It might be the status line. Yeah, go to Windows, UI elements, turn on the status line. That worked for you, Sydney? Well, let me know if that didn't work. We can, it's back and taking up the whole screen. You can usually find a little handle on, like, I can figure this out. So fixable now. Okay, all right, cool. Yeah, there's usually handles that you can grab and kind of adjust them, move them around. But yeah, so I have complete faith in you guys. If you get really stuck, you can always look at my curves that I did on this one. Again, they're not like perfect. See how there's like a little bit of wrinkliness in this one almost? I kind of need to like scale some of these back, you know, mess around with them. But yeah, so that's fine. This is training for when we're working with humans, right? Sounds so weird. Maybe I'm the robot after all. This is training for when we're working with humanoid rigs, right? So essentially, I want you guys to do 2 different sort of setups here, right? We have just very boring interpolation on this bottom one. You need to fix that. Look at that top one, right? See how much life and energy it has in there? And look how few keys I did that in, right? Like, it doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take a lot to do. So essentially, I'm gonna select these top 2. I'm gonna press S. I'm gonna press S again at the end to just make sure I have that stuff keyed. So if I wanted it to be as floppy as the other one, I'm gonna feel free to do that. Boom. See that? And then, boom. Notice how this one gets there much faster. I like that. It's kind of adding a little bit more speed and dynamics to it. It's essentially, think of it as a breakdown between that end point and that start point, right? See that immediately already looks better, already feels better. I like this lean back. Like, notice that this bottom control is doing that lean back as well. So I'm going to do that too. This one's only going to be translation and rotation, by the way. I don't want you guys messing with scale that much because on a normal humanoid rig, you don't get scale all the time on these controls, right? You don't get that organic stretch and squash and stretch control in there. Boom. So let's see what that looks like. So yeah, that's looking pretty good. It could probably do with a bit more ease into this last pose. See how it kind of snaps back a little bit quick. We could fix that by kind of adding a bit of time on there. See how I'm squeezing that out. Very nice. And then between this one and this one, we could exaggerate that or add more time in between there. Well, See that? So yeah, I want you guys getting used to this because you should be thinking of these not as like the objects they are, right? Like think of this as potentially like a punch that's going to happen, right? So on the wind up, boom, it's going to get like a wider silhouette if you kind of bring it to the side, and then you're going to boom punch forward super fast, right? I want you guys to be thinking about that because this is all these concepts you're going to be using when you're going for the full animation, right? So be thinking about that. Same thing for this one. Change it up though, right? So I kind of gave it like almost like a more confrontational approach. So it's like a little bit of a gruff approach on this top one right there. Gets into that pose. So same thing there. Same thing. And then this one. Now this one is going to take a little bit, right? It's okay if this one stomps you. Essentially, this is an arm, right? And the thing about arms in 3D, or at least most modern arms, back in the days of Toy Story, I don't think they had this tech online, which is tragic, but essentially under every arm, you have an FK and an IK arm, right? So internally in this rig, there's two arms. There's an FK arm and an IK arm. And FK is what this looks like, right? Now they're not all gonna look this way, right? And but you'll be able to tell it's an FK arm because if you rotate the shoulder, this shoulder control right here, the rest of the arm's gonna go with it, right? See how these subsequent joints fall, like are just you're only rotating. If you press W, you can see that you can't even move those, right? You physically can't move those. So this is FK. We know this is an FK control right there, right? So the problem is that if you posed this to be holding onto the wall, right? And then you had to clean up that contact, it'd be impossible. You would go insane. Like, see, watch, boom. If I get that contact on the wall, say that the rest of the waist lowers a little bit, right? Say that like the waist, I mean, this character doesn't have a waist, but like, look at that. Now that contact it's not even back, right? It's not even reading. Then you have to like rotate this to counter animate it. And then it wouldn't even line up to where like the contact point was. It would be hell. So don't ever use FK to do a job like that, right? This is FK, right? And I'm legitimately saying FK versus IK, you know, like you're not mishearing me. It's just FK versus IK, right? So this is an FK arm right here. And this is an FK arm as well, right? Like I'm doing the rotate as well, right there. Same as always. The difference is that when we get to the wall, boom, notice how the controls switched on there. See that on frame 24, those controls become different controls. Boom. See that? So now this is an IK control, and we're going to get more into this in the future. But what this is that you essentially control the position of that wrist by moving it, right? You're not only moving it, or you're not just rotating the wrist by itself. You're actually moving the arm. You're moving the arm along with it. And there are some problems with this rig because I just whipped it up real quick. See how the skin weights are a little bit wrong there. So forgive me on that one. But this is an IK arm. And notice how it maintains that where that end point is in world space. And now I can move the body anywhere. So that's why it's so much better for animating any sort of, like, if you're leaning against the wall, if you're putting your hands on a desk, if your feet are on the ground, right? Your feet should be in IK because they're going to be stopped in space right there. One second, I need to preheat my oven, by the way. One second, class. Forgive me. Very nice. But yeah, you need that ability to make solid contacts. So the question is, how do I switch from IK to FK in mid animation, right? I suppose you could start in IK for this whole animation, but I want you guys to be comfortable with being able to switch during, So if we have this current animation of this arm moving around, I just wanted to get onto that wall and then just stay there, right? Like that top one. So what we do is I'm just going to move this arm, this FK arm, into a nice pose for that animation, and just make sure that it contacts right there, right? Boom. We're just getting a contact on that wall. Boom. And then what we're going to do is select this control. Now these are Nurbs Curves. If they're not showing up, make sure that you go to the show menu and enable the Nurbs Curves right here. And this is your IK FK switch. Every rig that we're going to use is going to have some control like this on the arms, right? Because remember, there's two arms in this rig. There's the FK and the IK. We're switching from the FK to the IK, right? So this channel on that, if you open up your channel box, is IK FK, right? Boom. So I'm going to press S right here. So we're going in that pose, and then I'm going one frame ahead. And since 1 is FK right here, 0 is going to be IK. So type in 0, boom. See that? And now you'll see, wow, that hand is going super far away. Insane. Not the most insane. It's just that you have this new control over here. They appear at like where the origin of that rig is, which happens to be over there. And then if you just move those in, boom, and then set them up on that wall, it's going to be really cool. So now if you scrub back, I'm showing you the manual way of doing this. Eventually, you'll be working on a rig, and hopefully that rig will have a script that can do this for you. Not all of them do, by the way, depending on which one you choose, but some of them have a script that will just automatically match up that IK control to where this FK control is, right? So here's that old FK control on frame 23, because this channel is still 1. And then if we go 1 frame ahead, boom, now we're IK. And let's just get that. I'm just kind of, I'm flipping between frame 23 and 24. I'm just kind of visually matching them. Let's go from the top view. Let's try to get that matched right here. Nice. I'm seeing some discrepancy there. So I'm just one by one, just kind of eyeball matching that and just trying to get it to look pretty seamless. Might not, but oh, see that? So it's a laborious process. This is why we want to work with rigs that will do this for us. And then let's move that up a little bit. Boom. There we go. All right, so that's looking pretty good. And then notice there's a pop in the elbow as well. The elbow works very easily. You just position the wrist on the IK arm, and then you grab this elbow pull vector, and then you just move that wherever, and you see how that elbow is going to try its best to follow that. So let's put it down a little bit. Let's put it down a little bit more. Let's put it up a little bit. There we go. So now that's pretty good. That's pretty good. And if you it's kind of obvious when it switches, but if you turn off the Nurbs Curves and then play it, see that? Not too obvious. Not too obvious. So that's an important concept to understand. IK versus FK. And this is the first time you're going to do it. So there's going to be mishaps. I got questions about this like all last semester. So just be aware that it takes a little bit to grasp sometimes. But that's pretty much it. That's the homework. That's all the homework there. Any questions about that, y'all?
Professor, I have a question.
Yeah, absolutely.
So within each, I guess, exercise, there is a time like on frame, or so let's say in the first exercise, it goes from A to B, then back to A, and it has a time of when it's at A and when it's at B. Do we have to follow when it hits that time, or can we adjust the time as well?
Feel free to adjust the time. Don't play with it too much though. Because it's like I gave you a lot of time there, you know, so it's kind of annoying to try to figure out how to adapt around that, right? So feel free to change these endpoints a little bit, but don't squeeze it to like 10 frames, you know, because then it's like
just like if we want to exaggerate speed, we could shrink the time in between just a bit.
yeah, feel free. Yeah,
Cool, thank you.
absolutely. Any other questions, y'all?
I actually have a question. I don't know if it's okay. Yeah. So I spent a lot of time doing like the cube, the bouncy cube. I got it to like a point where I think I'm really happy with it.
Yeah.
Is there any way to like transfer the keyframe information from the graph editor from like the cube to the sphere?
Yeah. There would be a way. Let's look at that. I believe I have my bouncy cube scene still. Cube bounce. Okay, so I have like an old version. But this worked a while ago. Let's hope it still works. Essentially, if you shift left click drag on that timeline down there and just select all those keys, you can do right click copy. So you're in that scene with the other one, you know. Don't press anything, just immediately go to file and then go open that animation obstacle course. And don't worry about saving. And then on this one, just feel free to shift left click drag over these and then right click delete to just get those keys out of there. You can also just delete them in the graph editor. Simple. I didn't feel the need to call out that hotkey of the delete key, you know. And then if you right click paste, boom, it should have that same information.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So there you go. And then here's the other problem, right? Because now you have that animating, but then it's often like the origin over here.
Right.
So what you can do is change the entire translate X and translate Z curves, right? Because translate X is left and right. So if I just select this entire curve, and if I shift and then if I press W and then shift middle click drag, see how I'm able to change the entire curve of that animation. And then if I do the same with Z, I can bring it down onto this one. Boom, there you go.
Makes sense. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Any other questions, y'all? All right. Very nice, very nice. Let me know if there are any other questions. Feel free to hit me up on Discord if there are as well. Thick 5. Don't make a thick 5. It's supposed to be regular sized. Oh man, I should have added that to the environment.
I just opened it and it was like that. So
Wait, really?
yeah.
What? No, that's not right. Is anyone else's 5 as thick as Sydney's? Because that's not right. Something's going wrong there. That means that Sydney, where did you download it from? Was it from Beachboard or was it from Discord?
Beachboard.
Maybe that one got like corrupted somehow by the upload process to Beachboard.
I don't know. It could have been me like restarting Maya like a couple times just to get that bar back.
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. That's weird and concerning though.
I'll just re-download again and try again.
Joseph got his from Beachboard, but it's not like that. Dang. Yeah, that's very strange. A little ghost in the machine, I guess. Let me look at some times. Because I want to let you guys go early because I don't want to go to 9:45 on the first day of class. And you have a nice little simple assignment, so 33. All right, I am going to funky. Mine's a little glitchy as well. What the? No. Try downloading the Discord version if you have Discord on desktop. Try downloading that one. Ooh, are you guys on Mac or PC? For Sydney, Aaliyah, and okay, you guys are all on PC, huh? Joseph, are you on PC? I'm so lost. I don't know what could be doing that. That's really weird. Well, let me know if any other things in that file are weird, because I want to make sure you guys get a proper file, but yeah, mine only has one arm too. Whoa, that's not right. That's like absolutely wrong. Let me open up. That is super wrong. Okay, let me open this up again. Let's make sure everything is default. Oh wait, now I need to download the other version. Let's see. That. Boom. I'll open scene. Wait a minute. Did I upload the wrong one to Beachboard potentially? Rigged. Regional, of course. Wait, I only have one arm too. Oh, okay. I might have uploaded the wrong one. 1 second. Let me delete a bunch of stuff. Delete so much stuff, and then let me upload the correct version. Fine. There we go. Okay. All right. I'm also going to save this. File. Let's do edit delete all by type, non-deformer history. Okay. All right. I believe that should be fixed now. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to put that on Beachboard. I'm also going to copy it to Discord as well. Boom. 125, 831, perfect. I'm going to delete this old one. There we go. Then let's go to Beachboard and wow, it's animation obstacle course done. Yeah, I don't know why. Hopefully this works. That is so strange. All right, so grab the new one and let me know if that works for y'all. Is fixed. Okay. I have, for example, 3s instead of R's. Oh my god. What the hell? Yeah, please download that new version. Even if it wasn't messed up on your end, please download the new version. Let me know if that's working. Meanwhile, I'm gonna put a pizza in the oven. It'll be delicious. Yeah, thanks for calling that out, y'all. Definitely didn't want to conclude class and then just be like, yeah, you know, and work around it, you know. It's like, no, this is clearly wrong and messed up. All right. My cooking stream. Yeah, sorry about that. It's just my girlfriend's heading home, so I need to get Dins ready. All right. All right, y'all. So any other questions? Any other questions?
I think I'm good.
Okay. All right, y'all. Well, you are free to go. Thanks for hanging out with me for today's class. Yeah, I'm excited to see the homework next week. And next week, we're going to be starting the walk cycles. So take a look at animation methods. Again, I linked to it on the Discord. I'm going to put it in this call too. But check out the rigs there. See if there's anything that you want, and start thinking of like a walk cycle that you might want to do. There's a there's an awesome little collection of walks that this guy did. They're super fun to watch. So go through there, get some inspiration from that. But yeah, we'll go over that all next week as well. So you don't have to stress about that. Just get your homework done. But if you want to think about something like that, then feel free to. But yeah, other than that, you guys are free to go. I'll see you guys next week. Diane, I want to help you out while you're still here. So let me know. Let me know if you can. Yeah. Yes, thank you. Nice. Thanks. Yeah, no problem. Nice seeing the squad back in action. Awesome work, guys. Awesome work, guys. That's some good stuff. All right.
Oh, Mike, before we go,
Yeah.
should we have a rig ready? Not like found one from the internet for the walk cycles next week, or?
No, you can get that during class. I'm going to show you the process of starting to adapt to a new rig, so.
Gotcha. All right, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Oh, he said we're his squad. Dude, heck yeah, you guys are. Henriette Heard. You guys are ridiculous.
Thank you for today.
Yeah, no
Thank
problem.
you for today.
Good night.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Yeah, see you later.
Oh, quick question, Professor.
Yeah, what's up?
Are you gonna put the recordings for like the lectures on Beachboard?
Yeah, I was gonna upload them to YouTube because, like I said, my internet was acting a bit strange, so I wanted to record locally. So yeah, I'll put that onto YouTube and then I'll link to it in Discord.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm gonna start sharing my screen.
Yeah. So you tried that resetting the preferences thing and it didn't work out?
I don't think I did it right because for some reason it just wouldn't even pop up. Oh, okay. Let me see. So I have that. Yeah, just. Can you see what I'm doing?
No, I can't. I just see your desktop.
Can you see this?
Yeah, I see
Oh,
that.
okay, wrong one. Okay, so then I go Maya 22, and then I open Maya.
One second, I'm gonna turn on the fan a little bit more.
Yeah. It starts popping up.
Could you scroll to the top of that?
Oh, and then it goes away.
Oh, and then you can't do new scene?
And then I try to do new scene, but it doesn't, and it does that. And then I just do I tried either option, but then it says this. Fatal error.
Yeah, and then it will close, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Yeah.
Because when it does that fatal error, that's Maya crashing.
Mm-hmm. And then I did the spotlight search and like I did the thing and then and then it doesn't even give me the option. Like I click this one, but then on the thing it says on the link you sent me, sorry. It says to locate the preference folder and rename it to preference old. So then I like go here and then, but I don't know how to like change it. Like,
Oh, go one folder up from this.
like right here, the button.
It should. Can you not go back there?
No.
Oh, weird. Let's see. Sorry, I'm not used to Mac. But you see that little dot right there on the right hand side of that
yeah.
window? Yeah, click that. And then oh man, like because you like the folder you're in right now
Yeah.
is what you need to rename.
And I tried erasing it.
They see that name and extension? It's like down a little bit.
So-
Try name that old, like press old. Yeah, and press enter. Maybe that'll work. Okay, close that. And then now try opening Maya again. Oh, definitely like force quit this Maya. This is some cursed Maya. Yeah, there we go. And then try popping Maya open again. Yeah, use default preferences. Oh my gosh. All right,
And
see that? All right, see that scroll bar on the right hand side?
Yeah.
Try scrolling up to the very top because there's like an error that happens immediately, and I want to see what that is. Load plugin render setup. That's so weird.
oh, I didn't have this before, so maybe it'll work now.
Yeah, it's the new. Yeah, don't save.
Just
Fatal error. Damn.
Just kidding.
Yeah,
and then that's all it says on the link you sent me.
Yeah. Damn. I like see the sad part is that I think the best way to solve this would probably be doing a reinstall, like downloading it again and trying to reinstall it. But
Yeah.
I know that's annoying, but I think that might be the best way to fix this.
I did it 3 times already.
You reinstalled 3 times?
Yeah, throughout when it was like the dinner break. I'll try again just because I didn't have the create default option, what we just did.
Yeah.
So maybe hopefully that works.
But like could you re-download it as well?
Yeah.
I'm thinking that maybe the installer that you download, maybe something went wrong with that. So when you were reinstalling, it was still going to that same installer, giving you the wrong files or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Try it again. Hit me up if it's still not working though. I'm always down to like hop on a Discord call real quick and get this sorted out. Cause like this is a like you can't do anything. Like,
Yeah, I've never had this issue before. This was just because I wanted to update the because I have 2020 Maya, so and then there's 2022, and then
Yeah.
once I re-downloaded it, it just didn't work anymore.
Try going through the do you have that like Autodesk app?
The app,
Yeah,
The
because
folder?
like there's like an Autodesk desktop app. Like if I share my screen, oh my god, go, boom. It's like an app, and it has like
Oh,
art,
gotcha.
all the other stuff like preloaded in there. So you might be able to fix it that way.
Okay.
Oh, all right. Yeah, let me know if reinstalling or going through the desktop app doesn't work, because I want to get you on course. But yeah, feel free to reach out to me on Discord if it's not working
Okay, will do. Thank you.
at any time. Yeah. All right.
Good night.
See you later.